Thank you for coming to this Parent Cafe. This is sponsored by ISRC. And so now we'll introduce our panel. A lot of you all may know Brenda Schmidt. So do you want to introduce your family?
I sure will. I'm Brenda Schmidt, and I'm here as your person to ask questions about what it was like growing up being hearing impaired. And I have been in the field now for 27 years. I was actually the supervisor in Plainfield up until last year, and then moved on to, now I supervise the programs at Lamont High School, deaf and hard of hearing programs over in Lamont, Old Quarry, and the elementary schools. And I am pleased to introduce you to my family that have all had to put up with me in my life. And I'll start here. This is my husband, Paul. We've been married for 30 years, and so he's here to talk about what it's like to be with a hard of hearing wife. And this is my mom, Louise Price. She was really influential in my life for helping me become as successful as I am. And my sister, Beth, she's my middle sister, and she's also here to talk about what it was like to grow up with a sister who has challenges or not challenges, I don't know. So, okay.
All right, so we came up with some questions on our own, and so we'll ask you all some questions, and then at the end, if you guys have questions that you specifically want to ask, then please feel free to be...
Sorry, I got it stuck in my earring. I'm also Lucille Ball is my second personality, so just so you know.
So, you know, if you have questions, if you want to stop us in the middle, if you have questions that kind of relate to the questions we're asking, then please feel free to stop and ask us, okay? So, Brenda, can you describe to us what it was like to grow up as an only child in a family with hearing loss?
I think back a lot, and I don't have a lot of memories before the age of 7, actually, because I wasn't really properly aided until that time, and I think I didn't have a lot of language to connect to things that happened then, so I have sporadic memories up until the time I was about 7. And then growing up with the hearing loss, I was never made to feel that I was different. I had to wear a hearing aid every day. I wasn't given a choice. I wore it. And obviously I thought I benefited from it because I wore it from the minute I got up until the time I went to bed. I did feel isolated at times because I was the only one, I thought, in the school that had hearing loss and the challenges that I do, and whatever I would see another kid with a hearing aid, even at elementary school, I'd run over and try to make connections. Same, you know, I mean, it was really powerful to have peers that you can connect with that have the same challenges as you do, and I didn't always feel like I had that. By the time I got into high school, I lived in one place long enough. That's another thing. My dad was a salesman, and we got transferred every 18 months to a different state or a different territory in the country. So that was part of the reason that it was difficult to identify my hearing loss and give me services. So by the time I got in high school, though, they identified that I had a significant hearing loss, and they did what's called a case study, and I'm sure you've heard of the case studies that are done for kids to see if they are eligible for services. And at that time, I had already developed so many coping skills through reading and speech reading and picking up on cues in the environment that I didn't qualify for services. I qualified for speech, definitely, but I didn't qualify for any kind of hearing itinerant services or anything. So when I went to college, I had more progressive hearing loss, and I started thinking about what is it I could do that would not have me stuck in a field that you need hearing for. Definitely didn't pick jobs like waitress. Oh no, I stayed away from being a waitress big time. When I got to college, because I knew what a speech pathologist was, I wanted to be a speech pathologist, and I had a guidance counselor kind of sit me down and say, look, if you're losing your hearing, you might want to reconsider going into a field where you need to use your hearing to help other clients. And I said, yeah, that's true. That is true. So I decided to go into deaf education. And that's where I found out a lot about myself. So the services your kids are getting now in schools, from the hearing itinerants and the coping skills and learning about themselves, I didn't get that till I was in college. And it was eye-opening. It was wonderful. oh, this is me. And I'd bring home recordings of what it sounds like when I hear to my family. This is me, see, this is how I hear. Really, it's true, I know, I can tell you. So it was really a good discovery process. And that's how I kind of fell into this field. But I don't want to give you the message that if you have a hearing loss, you're limited to anything. You are not limited. There are many, many accommodations and things out there that can help you be whatever it is you want to be. And I want you all to be self-advocates for that. Okay?
Okay, so mom and sister, can you tell us what it was like having, like the sister growing up, having a sister that had hearing loss, or having a child that had hearing loss?
Well, I guess it all goes back. We didn't really know she was hard of hearing because she was hospitalized with a fever of 106 degrees when she was like 14 months old. So, you know, and then by the time they tested her at 4 years old, she came out she was totally deaf. We knew that that wasn't true. But anyway, they really didn't have the services back, I could say, in those days. And then when she went to school, that's when they said she needs a hearing aid. But I don't know. I think I taught a lot of lip reading to her. And I don't know. I don't think I ever treated her any different than any, did I?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think I treated her anything special. She was just a normal child, and that's the way they should be treated. Just, you know, that there's really nothing wrong with them and they can do anything.
I guess from a sister perspective, it's kind of along the same lines. I mean, we never really thought of her as being any different. She just was a sister who occasionally didn't exactly hear what I said, and I knew to get in front of her and to get in her face. And if I always tended to help other people who were around her, if they talked behind her back, I would go, she didn't hear you. So we'd go around to the front, and we knew she could lip read. And again, from a sister perspective, we had a normal sister relationship. And I do have a vivid memory, though, because I know that she had gotten you got your first hearing aid when you were 7. Mm-hmm. And I remember that the first sound that she heard was a cricket. And she didn't know what it was. And I think that's when I first realized what she was actually missing. I didn't, you don't realize. But as far as growing up, I do notice that we tend to speak a little bit louder when we're with her. Just kind of, and it's not even a conscious thing. You adapt and
And you did protect her. It seemed like you kids, both of the girls, you know, they would repeat after somebody, when they knew she didn't hear, they'd both repeat.
And it was just, was normal life. And you just kind of adapt, and I never felt it was anything abnormal. That was Brenda, and that's what you do. Trying to think if there's anything else.
You know, they fought like sisters.
We fought like sisters, without a doubt.
Well, I always thought it was strange is that I've always just treated her as Brenda, and when she first, it was like a big thing for her to tell me she wore a hearing aid, because she always just wore her hair so you couldn't see them. And it didn't mean anything to me. I was just like, oh, okay. But it was such a huge to-do to her to make that announcement that she wore a hearing aid. And it didn't matter to me, she was still just Brenda. So that's how we've always gotten along, and I've learned things like you never say never mind to her, which you can't hear. Those are the worst words in the language, because it means yes. She just posted something on Facebook about that, because it means you're like judging what she should hear or not hear, but I'm always like, well, I have to judge what I said was worth repeating 5 times. Shouldn't matter, but no, it's, she's excelled and done so many wonderful things and been such a role model for so many people.
How about the babies? Remember the babies?
Well, I remember our babies. Are you talking about our babies? Well, the big thing there is we're so worried that it was going to pass on that we were like the second people ever had like the baby tested when my son was first born to see if they were hearing impaired, and he wasn't. And
Do you remember, I'm just stopping for a second, do you remember how they tested him? Did they do an ABR?
They did an ABR, actually. It was the first ABR ever done at Edgewood Hospital because I was aware of it and I asked for it to be done. And so, back in 1989. they had somebody come and do an ABR on my son.
Didn't have that.
Well, and the reason I ask is even kind of before that, they did not check every baby's hearing when they were born. Yeah, that didn't really start until, the year Brogan was born, so around 2000. And they used to do cribograms. And so a cribogram was this device they would attach to the crib in the nursery of the hospital. And the cribogram would present a tone periodically, and the sensor in the crib would record whether the baby startled to that sound. And that's how they determined if the baby had hearing loss or not. So I was kind of curious how they had checked your babies.
And that's interesting too, because sound has to get loud enough even for a deaf person to feel the vibration. And they may not have heard it, but they felt the vibration. So that test could have been.
Well, and that's when they started going into automated ABRs and stuff, so.
I meant talk about getting up in the middle of the night. And when I was worried, I wouldn't hear
I've
that.
always had to hear. So when the babies were little, I was the one who had to listen to see if they were crying or not, and then wake her up. Just like when my daughter's first boyfriend broke up with her and we got the call at 2 a.m., I woke her up and said, "This is for you." Not for me. But, I've just learned I've got to listen, and tried to teach my kids, and I don't think they're 22 and 25. I don't think they've learned yet that you can't yell from the other room and have mom hear you. They still do that. And but we've all learned. My daughter's very protective of my wife. When so many times we're in stores and shopping and stuff, and people walk up behind her like a salesperson and talk, and she can't hear them, and they think she's just like ignoring them or being rude. They turn to walk away, and I always grab them and say, "Wait, she can't hear you," if you're not looking at her. So you just learn little things like that, little coping skills, and we're married 30 years, so we're doing something right. So.
I do have one question. It's kind of off of the subject, but you're talking about phone calls in the middle of the night and babies crying and stuff. So, Brenda, do you have any special alerting devices in your house?
I do. I realized that my turned up all the way volume radio alarm clock was not going to wake me up. One day when I slept for 45 minutes and it was playing at 120 decibels and I didn't hear it. So that's when I realized I needed to get a shake awake alarm clock, and I depend on that like you wouldn't believe. It really does shake the bed and wake me up. I don't even need the lights, but definitely I use the shake awake alarm clock. I've got some cool little gadgets here too. For Phonak hearing aids has some accessories that you can use with them. And this little one will connect me to my iPod for my music. And the first time I got this and connected it to the iPod for music, I about cried because I could hear the words to the songs. And I'm talking songs back in the 70s that I listened to high school with or whatever. All of a sudden I'm hearing, oh, that's what it said. Oh, that's what the words were. I was in heaven. The other thing that absolutely makes me cry when I use this is when I hook it up to the TV. I'm not used to being able to pick up all of the nuances of what's being said on TV and the music that plays in the background and all of that. And to be able to walk around the kitchen and put away dishes while I'm listening to the TV is amazing to me. I don't have to stop everything in one place, watch, then hit pause, and then go do what I have to do. It's really been a lifesaver for me. So also the phone. It hooks right into my phone, wear it around my neck. Phone rings, I click it, it answers in my hearing aids, and I walk around looking like I'm talking to myself, but it's picking up through this with the microphone, and I'm hearing the phone through my hearing aids, which is awesome. This is just a little remote control that changes all of the programs for me. This is for people, I think, who are more self-conscious about having hearing aids maybe and want to be discreet about I need to put it on this setting or that setting. I have no problem. Just put it on whatever setting I need to. And this is also a microphone that if I'm in a car with somebody, they wear it, and it picks up the voice directly. So I can drive, and I don't have to look like this all the time to speech read while I'm supposed to be driving. So, yeah, there are several pieces of technology out there that are wonderful that haven't been available in the past, 10 years. Yeah.
You also have the security alarm.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Yep. I was gonna say, the other thing I was gonna say is when we bought our current house, we had a security system put in, mainly because I do travel occasionally, and I knew she cannot hear. I mean, you can use an axe to come in the front door, she wouldn't hear it. But we had a security system put in that not only has a sound, but has strobe lights, like in our bedroom and then the main level of the house. So if there's either fire or someone breaks in, she can see the light if she can't hear the alarm. And I'll tell you, the alarm just about burst my eardrums, and she can't hear it at all. Yeah. But she, of course, can see the lights. And the guy was nice enough, he actually put those strobe lights in for free. He said he's never done it in a residential house, but it wasn't a big deal to do it. So that was a big help. And that way, I'm also feel better when I'm on the road that she has a system that will wake her up.
The one thing that I have found out now as I've gotten older is you need to really have a sense of humor. And when you hear something, and it's not right, I appreciate this now because my husband and I are both now losing our hearing. And so we laugh, And I don't know, I think it's just important to have a sense of humor. Do you find it true? I know. You have anything?
Not right now.
I have
But I would have done anything for her if we could have, but it wasn't available when she was young. And thank God now they have so much available.
Right, there's so much available. I have also used something that's called a caption telephone. And when I was going through a period of time where I was having trouble hearing people on the phone, I don't know if you've seen these before. They actually have a live operator sitting on one end that will type what the person's saying to you. I've used those as well, and you can get those for free from the state. The only problem I had with them is there's a slight delay between when the person stops talking to when you finish reading what's being said. So you do have to explain to that person on the other end, I'm using a special phone, hang in with me a minute so I can get the comment and then I'll reply back. So, but technology is getting better and better, and I keep trying. I keep going after the latest technology, and then I bug her to death with I need to adjust it again, and maybe we need a weekly appointment, and I just tweak this and tweak that. And I have also been, it's been mentioned to me that cochlear implant might be the next step for me, because I'm limited at the gain I can get with hearing aids at this point, and that a cochlear implant would get me more gain, but I'm still leery on going that way yet. I'm still
I was going to ask you what is your feeling about that?
I'm still thinking about it because I know that you have to relearn how to hear, and not that I'm against it, and I'm actually jealous that people with cochlear implants get better hearing sensitivity than me. So it's a possibility. So.
Here's a kind of oddball question for you. So now, texting is so popular among everybody, not just adults, but teenagers. And so have you found that very liberating?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And I've heard from other friends as well that they didn't really know their siblings as well until they got the technology of texting, that they can now communicate with each other and actually know each other. Texting is very important, a very important way to communicate, and so much more safe and comfortable and non-risky to communicate that way. So, yeah.
I know as a parent myself that I've had family members kind of frown on my children with their heads down in their phones texting, and I try to explain to those family members that for my two daughters that are profoundly hearing impaired, they can't talk to their friends on the phone, but they can text their friends. And so that opens up the communication world to them so much. So.
Right, you get to have all those conversations with friends that other people get to have, and that's very liberating.
Yeah, we wake up in the morning with her phone in our bed. And she literally has her phone with her all the time.
Just in case.
Okay.
Oh, there's a question.
Oh, yeah.
It was a comment, that microphone, we're hoping to get one.
Oh, good.
Ordering it, our little girl is 4, and with Christy's help, realized microphone would be very helpful for us with the 4-year-old, especially when we're like out in the park. There's a lot of other kids, and it's windy, and one day she took off down the sidewalk, and I wasn't sure she was going to turn when the sidewalk ended, versus keep running through yell her name to stop before she gets to that
Before she
point.
gets there.
Yeah.
And I also tell a lot of our parents that you think about a typical hearing child, they're always hearing what's going on in the environment. They're always hearing their sibling in the other room just get in trouble because he didn't wash his hands when he was supposed to, and mom says, you wash your hands when you do that. And the kid in the other room listens and says, oh, I gotta remember to do that, then I won't get in trouble. Our kids don't benefit from that if they're not hearing that noise from the other room. So these microphones help at all times too, because it helps them get access to that language that's being spoken in their environment. So it's really cool if you can get one.
Is there any other questions? Well, she's, oh, yeah.
Your car thing from Kodak, or is that a Bluetooth, the car mic?
Oh, the remote mic?
Yeah.
That's fine.
This thing, it's Bluetooth
But
as
Oticon
well.
has one. Oticon has one too.
Oh boy, and that's so hard. I mean, I've tried the rear mirror trick. If somebody's sitting in the back seat, I'll put it down and watch the person instead of the road. But you want to communicate.
Well,
Speak into the mirror.
So I have a question, and I don't know if this question's for you or for your mother, but what was it like when Brenda was learning to drive? How did you do that?
It didn't bother me at all. I didn't even think about it. Did you think about it? Because, you know, the flashing lights at that time, the police, you know, you'd see them in the rear. I thought about that, but then everything was explained to me that the lights, she was going to see the lights, the emergency, but now they have the lights in the street, you know, that comes on. So to warn a deaf person?
Well, I was thinking more of the instruction part of
Training
it.
part, I thought that's what you meant.
The training.
Yeah, more of the instruction.
Because it's, can I just tell you, so like, because I know when I was teaching my kids to drive, it's all verbal. So they're watching the road and they're listening to me, so she's a new driver, she's looking at you to.
Oh,
so
my husband did that. That wasn't my job. Oh, no.
Back then, there were no cars on the road.
It's horse and buggy days.
Well, and so going back to the technology you're using now, that would be a great situation to use that remote
Absolutely.
mic. I just
I've
know-
actually convinced a couple of my high school students that I supervise now who use cochlear implants but weren't using an FM system, but realized the value of it when they wanted to learn to drive and needed to keep their eyes on the road. So, yeah.
I just know when my oldest daughter was learning to drive, and Peyton, some of you do know Peyton, was refusing to wear her cochlear implants. I was doing a lot of this, you know. So I was just curious.
Your husband didn't do that, it was his job.
All right, we've already talked about technology. Safety challenges. So I know I've had a lot of parents ask me, like, what about the pool? You know, what do you do about the pool and that kind of thing when she was growing up?
That was something that I was concerned with, was, you know, swimming. But she seemed to handle it okay. She just did wonderful. I guess when she was growing up, and wonderful, yeah, you wonderful kid. Yeah,
I always paid attention.
yeah, she's a
I
very
definitely knew to pay visual attention to everything.
right. Okay, you want to repeat that a little bit louder?
I said I always knew to pay visual attention to everything. That was how I learned about my world and how I got the cues of what was going on. I was very good at copying. If they were doing something, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, good, that's what we'll do. So that is just, I think, individual personalities of kids.
That's so true.
Right.
I mean, the teachers would call me at school and say, you know, oh, she's just such a good kid, and then I thought, well, why am I here? You know, she didn't have any trouble in school, thank God.
No, because I was always afraid to get in trouble.
Well, and while we're talking, so one of the other questions we had was, did you have any special classes while you were in school? Did they give you, you said you didn't get a whole lot of
I
accommodations
didn't get a whole
anything.
lot of accommodations. I didn't get special classes. It was only in, when a boy made fun of the way I talk that I went and begged for speech therapy to try to help. It was very painful when a boy came up to me and the hallway and said, "Why do you talk so funny?" I was like, I didn't think I did. So that made me seek out the help, and
I do seem to remember that you would, I don't know if it was requested or if it just was natural that you would sit in the front of the classroom. I mean, was that at the teacher's doing or was that at your doing?
I think it was the teachers.
And I mean, like we said, there wasn't a lot of technology back then, but I do remember
That's right.
knowing that you typically would sit in the front of the classroom,
She did.
just so she could hear.
She's got a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, about the subject of teachers, were there some that were not as accepting and not as accommodating, and were there some that were really accommodating?
Well, Mom would take care of that. Yeah,
There
Mom
were
would take care
some
of
that were understanding and accommodating, but I remember back when they were discovering the hearing loss and not quite sure what was going on, I would write words on spelling test in first grade that the word was supposed to be ship, but I think I wrote it with the wrong ending sound, and the teacher wrote a big red mark question on it, sent it home to my mom,
That
big
was
trouble, what
funny.
is she doing writing this?
She wrote question mark.
I just wrote what I heard. So that teacher didn't have a clue. But
Some of them did, but if there was any problems, I really had to go myself to school, and I'm not afraid.
she used to advocate for me. There was another time I remember in Texas, I went to a school where they did corporal punishment. And I didn't know what that was, and I saw a kid go out in the hallway, and my way of getting information about the world is to go and look. So I went out and I looked, and I got extremely in trouble right away and put into a corner. I had to stand there because I shouldn't have gone out and looked out in the hallway, and I'm like, I had no idea why. I still remember that to this day, being shocked. Why am I in trouble? But things are much better now, I think.
This is good. Does anybody have questions? Any questions?
Did you use the FM system at that time when you had a hearing aid?
When I was in school, they didn't have them back then, so I had to turn my hearing aids all the way up. That was the way I coped. They used to tell me not to wear the hearing aids all the way on full volume. They'd give me a hearing aid and say 4 is the top, but we want you to wear it on 3. I didn't listen. I turned it up to 4 all the time. I went into the front of the class and listened. So we did not have benefit of that, and I really do now that I'm an adult. I use FM systems wherever I can. I also have learned to use interpreters wherever I can because I realize that's a really important skill to have as a backup, because someday my hearing aid might not work, and how am I going to communicate with somebody on that day? So it's a skill that you need to have and to keep up for a backup communication plan.
Just to give you a little history on FM systems, so FMs probably were coming out about the time you were in school or shortly after that. FM systems, when they first came out, were actually boxes that kids wore on their chests, and they had these cords that ran up to these nubbins that were plugged into ear molds in their ears. So they they didn't even use personal hearing aids. They used these boxes on their.
Tina had a box that was laying on the table.
Yeah, no, totally different. This was like they didn't have their hearing aids. And these were their hearing aids. So I don't even remember if they even got external information from those devices. Probably not.
At one time, well, of course they were not wireless at one time. They all had to sit corded together with it plugged into the wall, and you had to just sit there with the teacher speaking into the microphone. That was one system that they had. And they've progressed since then. So,
I always, for those of you who don't have middle schoolers yet, and you'll find that middle school is about the time that kids become very resistant to their FM systems. And I would love to have one of those old systems and bring it out and say,
here's what you're
there
going to
you go.
use. Yes.
And so that they would know now, because what they have now is so teeny tiny, And
Were they heavy to carry at that time?
they were actually, so she asked if they were heavy to carry. No, they were on harnesses. So it was like a backpack, almost like device that you wore on the front. So it wasn't that they were heavy. It was just, nothing screamed hearing loss more than probably that device. And so it wasn't. It's just the technology was just so different back then. So
Every kid has to go through an acceptance stage of using the technology too. I remember as a kid taking my hearing aid out and biting it because I was so mad at it that I had to have it, and it was squealing, and I just took the thing and I bit it, and I was just
I can
done.
understand that, the
Yeah.
anger, yeah.
Right. But now, one other thing I wanted to mention about interpreters is it's a great help if I go to a play or theater. I always ask for interpreters, and we get seats up in the front, and then you get the whole program interpreted for you so that you don't miss anything. I used to try to go and look up the lyrics and the lines to shows and memorize them ahead of time before I went so that I could enjoy it, and I didn't sit there and go, ha ha, what are they saying? I don't know. So that's another reason to have that backup communication system.
It's movie theater still a problem for the deaf.
Movie theaters are getting better. I do avoid going to the movies like the plague. My poor husband, I'm sorry, he likes going to the movies and I don't. But they do now have this special captioning thing that sits in the cup that you can use, and I did use it once. I just have to go back, because the thing that got me about that is when they give it to you, you carry it and you feel like you're carrying a vacuum down to the seat. Okay, I got the vacuum now, I'm gonna watch the movie. But you just have to be brave and say, this is what I need, this is cool. That's, yeah. So,
I just wanted
We just went to the Regal and in Bolingbrook,
Mhm.
and they have glasses.
okay,
Put them on over, and it closed caption is right here.
Oh.
that's wonderful. So everything's rapidly changing. So yeah, you won't have to carry your vacuum down the hall anymore. You
So
can,
the Regal in Bolingbrook has, did your kids try it?
Yeah, Mark used them, he loved them.
Did he?
He loves them. They've been over his glasses.
and they're free. They're provided by the movie theater for free. You just have to ask. So
I was just going to say that the one thing that they wanted to do to you was they wanted to, she wore one aid for many, 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 many years. They wanted to put another one on. And I kept resisting because now you can answer this one. The one that she was wearing the aid in, that's where the hearing loss got worse. And they wanted to put another one over here. And I felt like that was going to make the hearing loss worse in this area. Now, I don't know how they would have done that. They said it would have. I mean, that was technology.
Well, probably the reason they did that was because that many years ago, one hearing aid really was what they thought was the thing to do.
But I fought it. I mean, I don't know if I did the right thing, but I figure when she was at.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, it probably had, the fact that she had a hearing aid in that one ear probably had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that she was progressing. It's just, so many parents have told me, oh, I didn't realize how much hearing loss my child had until she got hearing aids, and then when she takes them out, we see such a huge difference. And they'll say, is the hearing aid making them worse? And no, it's not. It's just, I think it just really makes you aware of how much your child is actually missing.
yeah, I actually practice not wearing them for 2 hours in the morning now, so I can have peace and quiet.
But then she talks to us and she can't hear us, so.
Oh. Okay, let's see. Well, do you guys have any questions?
I'm just relating to a lot of things that they're saying, and so she has a sibling, so I'm just sitting there going, yeah, that sounds right, yeah, especially about the safety, and that's a whole other thing I'd like to address it later, because I have a lot of concerns with both of them out in the street, and, so, and a lot of it's just like aha moments as you guys are talking. Your mom sounds a lot of things like I do now, so that's what she kept saying, so.
And I still find myself to this day walking out in the middle of a parking lot and not realizing a car is behind me. It's something you have to constantly be aware of.
We live in a cul-de-sac, and the kids, they're out playing, and it's coming that time again when the kids are out playing, and, they always have their aids on, but, you hear they have a problem with background noise, and we've discussed that, and that's always an issue, and, and I, like you said, I treat them like any other kid, and I don't, I yell to them, I do this, and sometimes they miss it, and I don't, I think, well, let me yell louder, and I don't think, well, I got, I'd like try to go out there, and I'm kind of concerned about the cars and this and that, and you're talking about some of these devices, I'm like, gee, that might actually be really helpful to that. So that's why I'm kind of thinking,
more things going in my
Might
head about
save
what-
some of the stress that,
Technology is wonderful nowadays. And
yeah.
you pray a lot, that's why.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question?
Can you explain to me, like, why do they take the hearing aid out while they're talking on the phone?
So, yeah, so the question, why do they take the hearing aid out when they're on the phone? Did Tina do that? No?
Adults.
Oh, why do adults take their hearing aids out when they talk on the phone?
They cannot hear it without hearing, but they take it out when they hear a phone call. They have to hear without the hearing.
I would imagine that those people have a hearing aid just for a minimal amount of hearing loss, and so when they take it out, that they can still have enough hearing to hear on the phone with it going directly into their ear. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I took mine out, it'd be like, don't talk to me, okay?
The question that should have came up with my mom, because I was trying to talk to her on the phone, she's like, let me take my hearing aid out, and I told her, no. I said, put it up by the microphone. So what they're doing is they're not, possibly not putting it by the microphone to hear it, so they're kind of plugging it, and they're listening to the microphone is actually.
Yeah, it depends on what type of hearing aid they have, so,
one that Tina has,
like behind the ear.
and they just take it out and they listen to the phones.
Right. So they kind of forget, when we hold a phone over our ear, we're channeling the sound into the ear canal. You can't do that with a behind the ear hearing aid because the microphones, what picks up the sound is actually behind the ear. So when they positioned the headset or the cell phone or whatever phone they're using, they have to position it so that the sound is over the top of their ear because that's where the microphone actually sits. Now, hearing aids also have programs that are called telephone programs. And I was going to ask you, Brenda, have you been to, because a lot of large theaters, like we're talking in Chicago and that type of thing, have begun looping their rooms. So a loop in a room is where they put a coil around the room. They'll either do it under the floor and the ceiling or whatever. And what that does is it allows a person who has a hearing aid with a telephone program to switch to that program, and whatever they're watching and listening to is directly amplified to their hearing aids without being attached to anything. You don't
I have experienced that. It was wonderful. I went to a hearing loss convention where there were about 1,000 people there, and we sat in a big giant room where there was one keynote speaker, and the looping was in there, and I just put it on telecoil, and I could hear the speaker as if he was right in my ears. They also are trying to get this more widespread in the country, and McDonald's are trying to pilot some programs where they have looping when you have a drive-through. You pull up to the drive-through, and there's looping there too, and you can also put your hearing aids on telecoil and hear to order. That's another very difficult place to be, is at a drive-through. You can tell what the things are expected, when you tell them you want to order, but then they throw a comment at you. Lately it's been, is your order correct on the screen? I didn't expect that comment and I didn't understand it. Can you please repeat that back to me? So they're starting to throw new things at me, even that are out of routine, that are very difficult. So that looping there is a movement to try to get that around for everybody.
And so knowing your children, most of you all have devices that have that program in it. Now, we don't make it accessible to them when they're very young because they're not old enough to access programs. But it's definitely something that when they're older, talking late teens, early, like late middle school, beginning high school is something they would have access to and something they can look to.
Do some of the aids switch automatically if there's a teacher like that?
Some of them do.
Yes, but I hate that.
And I can't address that. You have to talk to
Well,
Brenda about
I'm just going to say that I'm the type of person that I don't want my hearing aids thinking for me. I want to switch when I want to hear what I want to hear. And for kids who are maybe not such sophisticated users of hearing aids, it's probably a good idea to have it automatically switch like that. But in my case, it doesn't switch fast enough for me to be beneficial. So I have Christy turn that off all the time.
Yeah, that's a program in like in Phonak that's called Easy Phone, and it will switch automatically. I've heard a lot of adult patients tell me they don't like it because it will switch automatically when they don't want it to switch. You know, and
Or you could just be sitting on the phone and not move, and all of a sudden it'll switch out of T-coil and back in, and that's embarrassing to say to the person, can you repeat that because I just missed half of what you said? Because, you know, so, yeah, I like to control my own technology.
And I think this is just what I'm seeing with my children is our children are very comfortable with technology. They are not afraid of technology. You know, we are. I am terrified to try something new, you know, because I want to read everything about it and see. They're not. They will just pick it up and do whatever they want with it because they're not afraid of it. And I think that's going to be really awesome for them as they get older, because all these amazing changes in technology we're seeing with hearing aids and cochlear implants, they're really going to be able to access the advantages of it. So,
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Any other questions?
I don't sign at home. I was the world's worst mom. I should have taught my children sign and made them learn it, because then they could communicate with me when I wanted to. I also tried to teach this one sign, and we never really got past ABC. I don't know if it was coordination or what it was, but I do sign at work. I do use it as a backup communication system. It's a great skill to have, and I should have started it with the family a lot sooner than I did.
I wish I had learned.
Yeah. Yeah. So do it if you can. It's a really beneficial skill to have.
Please.
Well, and can you address the fact that a lot of colleges actually accept it as a foreign language now?
Oh, yeah. I actually was instrumental in getting the Plainfield High School American Sign Language classes instituted into the curriculum. And one of the ways I helped convince them of that is by doing research. And at that time, about 180 colleges in the United States accept American Sign Language as a foreign language credit. And they're trying to get that to grow more and more, because it is a recognized language, a second language, and it's a really good skill to have too. I also proposed it for the kids who aren't necessarily hearing impaired, but maybe they learn visually better than they do auditorily. So you think about a child going into a class and learning to speak German, it's all auditory. There's nothing visual to it. Whereas with American Sign Language, it's conceptually accurate. You know, you can show a sign that represents what it means. For example, the sign for adapt, it also means change. This is change, adapt, okay? So there's multiple meanings that can be conveyed in that as well. So take the class if you can in high school.
Please
We're in the
do.
advanced class at Hamilton.
Okay, good.
They're doing the classes through Jill Furto, yeah.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
She said something.
They're taking Jill Furto's class, the one
Oh,
that Jill
good.
does.
She's good. Yeah, I want her to teach a level 2. So I'm working on her with that. Okay.
The sign, so she asked if it was just offered to high school. It's a high school course. No, they're actually, yeah,
This is in Memorial at the rec center. Okay. And it's for anything from Memorial to Bolingbrook to Plainfield.
I think Plainfield North and Plainfield Central have it as a credit course, right? Yeah.
Talk around her. Microphone.
but there are actually courses in the high school that they can take as a foreign language. So, but that's a family course that they're speaking of. Any other questions?
I do want to say that it's not true that if you teach your child sign from the beginning that they're never going to learn to speak. Definitely that's not the case, and if anything, it supplements their ability to learn language and to help and to have access to it. So that's my philosophy for the day. Okay.
Any other questions? Well, before we finish up, I have one question for each of you. So, as a sister, if you could tell other children that have a sibling with hearing loss, what would you want them to know, or what would you want them to remember, or?
I don't know, it's just, like Paul said, it's just Brenda, and you learn to adapt. She was no different. I definitely didn't treat her any different, but I did know what I needed to do in order to communicate with her. And and helped her when we were outside the house. So I guess just to adapt, and it's just, it's normal life. It's absolutely normal life. There was nothing different. It's just, I talk to my mom, I can talk to my mom this way. I talk to Brenda this way. I know that I have to look at her in the face, and it happens. It's just second nature, so.
Have you found, like outside of your family, if you encountered somebody else with hearing loss, that it was very easy for you to fall into a conversation? And
Absolutely, and I think I'm a nurturer, so I tend to tell, I don't want to necessarily verbalize it, but I do tend to make sure that that person is hearing what somebody is trying to communicate, and I'll even say that, she didn't hear you. You just have to talk to her, she just has to see you. And so yes, I definitely have noticed that with other people that I've found out have been hearing impaired, that I do just kind of, again, adapt and try to help them.
Oh, the only thing I wanted to add was that I always tried to get Brenda to say, I can't hear, It's like people that wear glasses, explain to them, you can't see and I can't hear. And it's just, that's the way it is.
That's one of for me personally, saying that I can't hear felt like it was revealing a weakness about myself. And so that's one of the reasons that I do now support this annual Self-Advocate of the Year Day, where we treasure and honor students who advocate for themselves at all times. You have the right to. You have the right to advocate for yourself, and you have the right to say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you please repeat that? It's never bothering other people. But that was something I had to grow up with personally and get used to and figure out. So.
I'm waving to Olivia.
And by the same token, I would say that my daughter has learned a lot of, like Paul said, protective skills. If she likes to go shopping with me, and she'll stick up for me if a clerk is rude to me or says something that wasn't supposed to be. She'll speak up for me, or she'll lean over and say the clerk said 2392 words. Okay. So she definitely has stepped right in that role too, which is kind of interesting because she's my daughter, and she just
get self-confidence, that just because they wear a hearing aid, that they're normal, they just can't hear.
Did you, as a sister, or even as a mother, because I find myself doing this, were there times that you helped her that she probably didn't know it? Like, I'll know my children will be walking through the hallway and their friends will be going, hey Brogan, hey Peyton. And of course, there's a bazillion kids in the hallway and they don't hear that. And so I'm like saying, she said hi.
Oh,
she said hi.
Oh, sure,
Same
a lot,
thing,
yes. They need to have a sign on their back.
Yeah, just don't talk to me from behind.
Yeah, come around, speak to me in the face or something.
And that's really good. I'm glad you guys do that because it's so easy to say that a person is stuck up or rude because that's how they perceive it when they don't really understand. So.
Okay, as a spouse, what's your final words of wisdom?
Well, I was just going to say they don't have to be limited by anything that happens to you. I mean, I'm so proud of her. She has 2 master's degrees, and she has served as such a role model. I don't know how many times she's come home to me and said like she was an IEP or whatever, and parents have come up afterwards and said, we're so happy to meet you because we're so worried our children, would not grow up a normal life, and you're just living a normal life. And so it doesn't matter you're hearing impaired. You can just live a normal life. And that's what we've all said, we treat her normally. I will add one thing, because I get you back to the sign language at home. She likes the fact she could turn her hearing aids off and not hear me if she's mad at me. So it's a good reason not to learn sign language.
She does talk about how she can turn her hearing aids off and enjoys that quiet time that none of the rest of us can enjoy.
I do take advantage of that. When my daughter was 4 years old and she would be screaming in the back seat of the car and I couldn't do anything about it, I would turn the hearing aids off too. And she would see me and she would scream even louder. So it's one perk to having a hearing loss. So let's say, hey, we got our perks too. And I just appreciate every time I turn around and say there's a new set of hearing aids out there. And I know we just bought some 6 months ago, but I want the latest technology. That's what I'm always putting him through.
Yeah, take advantage of all of the, things that are available to you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Well, I am one of those parents, so step away as the audiologist and me as the parent. I am one of those parents that I am just so grateful for Brenda because she really has just done so very, very much for the hearing impaired and deaf kids in this area, not just Plainfield, but all of this entire area. The advocacy thing she's talking about, you'll experience that when your kids are a little older. Tina, Mrs. Martin's daughter, just won Advocate of the Year. So it's a luncheon that the kids go to in middle school and when they're in middle school and high school. And they talk about teaching these children to advocate for themselves. And it's a wonderful experience because they get to be with a ton of kids that are just like them. And it's really nice for them to be able to see. And Brenda was really instrumental in doing that. And I think Brenda's just amazing, and I just really, really appreciate her being here.
Oh, thank you. I don't feel like it's anything special. I just feel like sharing my life experiences is just something that I want to do so that people can have hope. You know, hey, look, she can grow up, she can get married, she can go to school, she can do whatever she wants, or she. So.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Well, thank you all, not just Brenda, but your family for coming. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very, 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 very much.